Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So, been a while, been almost 2 months since my last podcast. This is episode 7 of the True Boxing podcast. Like I said, been a minute since I've been on with you guys. Had a lot going on in December, obviously the holidays and everything, but was doing a lot of my top tens and my boxing awards. If you guys want to go check those out, I busted out a lot of them. I think I did a total of like 120 to 130 videos of top tens, and that was fun. Got a lot more viewers and everything. So, just want to get back to doing the podcast once a month. I really enjoy doing it. I'm probably going to do it probably the beginning of every month to give you guys a recap from the month before and a preview of the month coming up. And I'm going to try to mix it up and do some different categories and different things to talk about. Today's shouldn't take too long, though. Probably going to be about 30 to 40 minutes max as we just recap January, do a preview of February, and then I'm going to get into some boxing news per division. But I hope you guys really, over the last month and a half to 2 months, I've almost doubled my subscribers on YouTube, and just keep checking me out. I'm going to keep pumping out the videos, and I hope you guys really enjoy them. So now we're going to start with the January recap, which should go quick. Really only 5 fights to talk about. On January 1st, we kicked it off with heavyweight action. There was a pay-per-view card on Fox that saw Luis Ortiz and Charles Martin go at it. This is a significant fight because it was moving up the IBF rankings. And Luis Ortiz went out there, and, Martin was actually doing pretty well against Luis Ortiz, who really is starting to look his age. He's 40, 41, 42 now, starting to look his age. Charles Martin was trying to get in, but Ortiz, the one thing he still packs is that punch, and he just hurt Martin in the 6th round, stopped him, and, continues on his path towards another world title shot. But he's already passed on fighting Filip Hrgovic in a IBF mandatory, as a lot of fighters are passing on a showdown with Hrgovic right now. We'll hopefully get into that later. On January 15th, Joe Smith Jr. was supposed to fight Callum Johnson of the United Kingdom, and instead he had to take on a replacement opponent because Johnson was injured, named, I think it was Steven Geffrard, and Joe Smith just pretty much just kind of shook off the rust, went in there, dominated Geffrard, 9th round TKO victory as he stayed on a mission towards what's looking like it could be a unification bout. We'll get more into that when we talk about the light heavyweight division in a little bit. Also on the 22nd, you have Mark Magsayo from the Philippines, undefeated fighter on the rise, took on Gary Russell Jr. Gary Russell cited an injury prior to the fight. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but Magsayo went out there, put the pressure on Russell early on, landed the big power shots, and seemingly just outworked Gary Russell. But Gary Russell had his moments, but he was kind of pot shotting, one shot at a time, one punch at a time. And Russell couldn't really, do any more than that with his supposed injury to his right arm. So Magsayo, it ended up being a close fight. It went to the scorecards, where the judges scored Magsayo with a majority decision victory over Gary Russell as he becomes the new WBC featherweight champion at 126 pounds. This was a major upset right here. Gary Russell, after the fight, said that he had like a tendon or something injured in his right arm. He wasn't going to cancel the fight and do surgery. But what I don't like about Gary Russell in this one is how he cited the injury in advance. Then during the fight, his corner let everybody know that he was injured. And then after the fight, he talked about being injured. Like, I really wish fighters would stop making that excuse, because I'm not saying first off, when you're injured, it's not a full on excuse. Does that impact how you fight? Of course it does. I mean, let's not get it twisted. Of course you're affected if you're injured, but I really wish fighters, and I've been wishing this since Manny Pacquiao cited an injury against Floyd Mayweather. If you have an injury and you go on with the fight, once you go between those ropes, that injury doesn't mean shit, And I really wish guys would stop making the excuse after the fight that they were hurt. Wait, go get surgery, get it done, post it on your social media, and then people can ask, do you think this affected your performance? You could say yes, and that's fine. I don't really think you're making an excuse at that point. I think it becomes a reason and not an excuse. But when you cite the injury in advance and all that kind of stuff, you're basically saying, hey, if I lose, here's the reason why I'm going to lose, and I don't like that. I really didn't like that about Gary Russell. I think he'll be back, but Magsayo is a breath of fresh air in the division. We'll talk about what he possibly has coming up when I get to the featherweights in a little bit. And then on January 29th, we had a couple fights. Robson Conceição scored a dominating one-side unanimous decision win over undefeated Xavier Martinez. Martinez was surprisingly the favorite heading into that fight, but Conceição proved that his performance against Oscar Valdez was not a fluke last year. And he went out and dominated Martinez in what is a WBC eliminator. It's not a final eliminator, but it's an eliminator. And Conceição is trying to keep himself right there in the hunt at 130 pounds. That was a pretty impressive performance. That was on ESPN. And then on a Don King pay-per-view, we had a potential Canelo, how do you say it? A potential Canelo opponent based on the winner of a rematch of the cruiserweight title fight between Ilunga Makabu and Tabiso Mushunu. They had fought back in 2015. It was a close fight, and Makabu knocked Mushunu out in the 11th round. This time for the WBC title was a mandatory fight. And this time there was a lot of controversy. A lot of people thought Mushunu outboxed Makabu. I didn't watch the fight personally. I wasn't going to waste $50 on watching that, but a lot of people thought Mushunu should have walked away with the title, but Makabu got the win and got the nod, and is really hoping that Canelo looks his way for the cruiserweight title. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go forward. But that was the action pretty much in January. If I had to say fighter of the month, I probably would give it to Mark Magsayo for his upset of Gary Russell. I thought that was impressive. Even though, you did I do believe Gary Russell was injured in the fight. So I'm not going to say that, but I thought Magsayo to come in and beat a guy on the level of Gary Russell was impressive. So fighter of the month for January, I'm going Mark Magsayo, the new WBC featherweight champion. All right, we're going to switch it up and go to my February preview. And I'm just going to briefly run through some of the fights. It's actually, not any major fights taking place, but good fighters. You will see some good action in the month of February. This weekend, February 5th on ESPN, from the United Kingdom, you're going to see Chris Eubank Jr. against Liam Williams at a middleweight showdown right here. I did my breakdown video. Go check it out on my YouTube channel. But I'm really looking forward to Eubank and Williams colliding in this one. I think Eubank is hungry. He wants to get that big fight. He keeps calling out Triple G, talking about Canelo, talking about Billy Joe Saunders. And Liam Williams is just trying to get back into the mix. And I don't think he's just the opponent in this fight. I think he's coming in. I think this is going to be a good action-packed fight between two top 10 middleweights. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm giving Eubank the nod. I think he's going to get this win by a decision, but I really believe that Liam Williams is a live underdog. That's, again, February 5th on ESPN. Then on Fox pay-per-view, we had a little bit of a change here. First off, it's the Thurman versus Barrios card on Fox pay-per-view. $75. For me, I'm not paying that much. I was flirting with the idea when Abel Ramos and Josecito Lopez were going to fight. Now Josecito Lopez got injured in training, so Abel Ramos is still going to fight on the card, but he's been bucked down to the other card. His nephew is going to fight on the main card instead. But the three fights that matter on the undercard, one that could steal the show and, to be honest, could steal the month, is Luis Neri against Carlos Castro in a 10-round super bantamweight fight at 122 pounds. You got Castro, the undefeated prospect contender on the rise, knocked out Oscar Escandon, taking on Luis Neri, the former two-division champ, who was knocked out by Brandon Figueroa last year, suffering the first loss of his career. He's trying to bounce back from that. Castro is trying to prove himself. I really think it's going to be a good fight that could go either way. It's going to be all action. I'm giving the slight nod to Carlos Castro, but I really think Luis Neri can pull this one off. We'll see what happens. That's the undercard. Then Leo Santa Cruz makes his long-awaited return as he takes on the little-known Keenan Carbajal from Phoenix, Arizona. Santa Cruz, this is not a title fight. He still holds a title at 126. He's decided to take on to keep the world title at 126, and if he gets through this, he'll be fighting the winner of Michael Conlan and Lee Wood, who are colliding in March. So Santa Cruz has a lot of big things to look forward to if he could shake off the rust and get by Keenan Carbajal, and also shake off that loss, that brutal knockout loss that he suffered to Tank Davis back in October of 2020. And then the main event, you got Keith Thurman making a return after 2.5 years out of the ring when he takes on Mario Barrios in Mario Barrios' in his debut fight in the welterweight division. Thurman, has a lot to prove. He does not need to, have an injury sustained to him. Terrence Crawford said he's going to be watching this fight closely, and he might want the winner of this fight, especially if it's Keith Thurman. So Thurman, the world is his oyster, as they say, if he can defeat Mario Barrios in this fight. But Mario Barrios, I absolutely believe he's a live underdog. He's coming off that knockout loss to Tank Davis, but he fought his ass off in that fight before fading in the late rounds. And he's facing a guy that hasn't fought in 2.5 years. Maybe the weight will be better for Barrios as he moves up to 147. I can't wait to see what happens in this one. I think it's going to be good. Thurman, Barrios, I'm giving Thurman the nod by a decision. So I got Thurman by decision, Santa Cruz by a decision, and Carlos Castro by a decision on that card. We'll move to February. Oh, again, that card is February 5th, Fox pay-per-view. Then on February 12th on DAZN, we got a big super middleweight showdown. You got Daniel Jacobs returning after a 15-month layoff, controversial decision loss or decision victory over Gabriel Rosado. As he takes on John Ryder, the former world title challenger. This is a crossroads fight for both guys. Ryder's trying to get another title shot and prove himself that he's a legitimate top 10, top 5 super middleweight. And Daniel Jacobs is trying to reestablish himself and prove to everybody that he still has what it takes, as he's pretty much on the last legs of his career and trying to, get those big money fights, get back to those fights. So we'll see what happens. I'm giving Daniel Jacobs the nod in this one by a decision, but I do think John Ryder's a live underdog and can pull off the upset. Should be good. Saturday, February 12th on DAZN. Then February 19th, we got a couple cards. First off, I'm not sure where the first one is going to be yet, but Amir Khan is battling Kell Brook. It's a battle of UK rivals, former champs. They're both past their prime, and I'm not sure it's a fight that a lot of people care about, but it's happening. And if they're going to show it, I might just check it out. But I'm giving Brook the nod in this one. I think he's going to either stop Khan or he's going to get a decision. But I wouldn't be surprised if Khan wins. But these two guys have been irrelevant for years now, and I'm not even sure what we're going to see. Also on the 19th on DAZN, you got later on in the day, you got Jaime Munguia, the undefeated former junior middleweight champ and current middleweight contender, returns as he battles undefeated Demetrius Ballard. Now, a lot of people disappointed in Munguia taking this fight right here. They want to see him fight more name fighters. I think he's just staying busy as he potentially moves himself in line for a title fight against Carlos Adames, as it looks very likely that Canelo is going to be fighting Jermall Charlo next, and Charlo would then give up his belt. So that's not confirmed. We'll see, but that's what I think is going on here. I think he's just Munguia is just positioning himself, but he does not need to overlook Ballard. I think he's going to go out there and get the knockout against Ballard, but Ballard is undefeated, and we're going to see how good he really is when he battles Munguia. That's February 19th on DAZN. Then on the 26th, we got a couple cards coming your way. First, on ESPN, Josh Taylor, the undisputed junior welterweight champion at 140 pounds, makes a mandatory defense of his belt against Jack Catterall. This one's coming from, I believe it's coming from the United Kingdom. Gonna be a good fight right here, as Taylor tries to, keep his name on everybody's mouth, and he's fighting in his home country. You know, he's coming home to fight against Catterall in this one, and I think he's going to get out there and get a big win and push forward towards what potentially could be a defense against Teofimo Lopez in the second half of next year, or this year. So we'll see what happens. But Taylor, I got him winning by a late stoppage over Catterall. Then the Showtime card should be good. There's a fight. There's a triple header taking place on Showtime. I think Jerwin Akanhas defends his title, the little guys. But one of the fights that I'm looking forward to a lot is on the undercard. Gary Antoine Russell, Gary Russell Jr.'s brother, 14-0, 14 knockouts, is taking on Victor Postal, the former champion. This is a big step up for Antoine Russell, and Postal really at his age is going to prove whether he still belongs or whether he's just at the end of it. And if this Gary Russell is a legitimate top 10 guy. So I'm really looking forward to that one. That's going to be a good fight right there. Good test for Russell, and a good test to see if Postal still got what it takes to be in the top 5, top 10 at 140 pounds. But the main event that night on Showtime is going to be very good, very solid. Roger Gutierrez battles Chris Colbert. Gutierrez, the 130-pound super featherweight champ. This is a mandatory fight, taking on the undefeated Colbert. You got Gutierrez, who's got the power, brings the pain. He likes to mix it up, taking on Colbert, who likes to box. And it's going to be an interesting style clash right here. Now, I think Colbert is going to win a clean decision, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Roger Gutierrez pulls this one off and holds on to his world title. So make sure you check that out Saturday, February 26th on Showtime. And then the last fight to talk about in the month of February is, in my opinion, it's the one I'm most excited to see. You guys are going to probably be like, who? But Cruiserweight is coming alive, and there's a really good 6'5" Cruiserweight named Lawrence Okoli. He's the undefeated WBO champion. He's coming off of his career best win last year. He's a fire plug that's on the rise. He's taken on contenders Mikhail Cieslak, who's 6'3". This is a good battle of two big cruiserweights, and I think it's going to be a really competitive bout right here. I think Okoli, I don't think he's bitten off more than he can chew, but he's definitely in there with a dangerous, dangerous opponent in Cieslak, and I really can't wait to see this fight. Sunday, February 27th on DAZN. The WBO Cruiserweight title is on the line. Okoli, a top 4 guy, a win here could put him into the top 3, a solid win. And I'm really looking forward to this fight right here. And Cieslak, again, you don't want to sleep on this guy. He is a very dangerous contender at 200 pounds right now. So that's Sunday, February 27th on DAZN. All right, guys. So I'm going to go into a segment that I call Fights We Want to See. And really, it's to let you guys know what's going on in each division a month in, the fights that we wanted to see coming into the year, what news has broken out to see if those fights could be possible. And I'm going to go through each division that I cover, which is 122 all the way to heavyweight. This shouldn't take that long. It's just to give you guys some updates and some news on what is going on in those divisions. So I'm going to start with 122 pounds, which is super bantamweight. And the fight that we really wanted to see coming into this year was an undisputed title fight, a potential one between the two undefeated unified champions. You had Mirajan Akhmadaliev, the guy they call MJ, and you had the undefeated Stephen Fulton Jr., who unified titles by beating Brandon Figueroa. Excuse me. Now, a lot of people wanted to see if there was the potential of an undisputed title fight. I was hoping that these two sides would talk to each other and possibly work it out. MJ being with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, and Stephen Fulton being with the PBC, I was skeptical. And but what happened was the WBA and the IBF have both ordered mandatory fights for Akhmadaliev. So not only are we not going to see him in there against Stephen Fulton, not likely to see those two guys lock up this year, to be honest, because the IBF first came out and mandated Akhmadaliev to fight Marlon Tapoulis, and then they I don't know if step aside money was offered or what, but the WBA ordered Ronnie Rios, who was supposed to fight Akhmed Aliyev in November, ordered him to fight MJ instead. And so Akhmed Aliyev has to fight Ronnie Rios. Marlon Tapales is probably next. And then he still has Azat Havanassian, who is the WBA #1 contender. He still has him sitting around. So I'm not sure if we're going to see an undisputed title fight anytime soon. Now, what is Stephen Fulton going to do in that time frame? If I'm Stephen Fulton, I'm fighting my #1 contender, former unified champ, Daniel Roman. He's sitting there at 100 as the #1 contender in both, and he's a PBC guy like Fulton. So it's an easy fight to set up and make. I think that should cover Fulton's first half of the year, and then second half of the year, just whoever the best possible opponent is. Maybe an undisputed title fight is possible. I hope it is. But that's what I'm doing if I'm Stephen Fulton Jr. But I'm disappointed. I really wanted to see if the potential undisputed title fight could happen because they're both undefeated unified champions. They both have 2 belts each, but no such luck as we enter the month of February. Now, 126 featherweight. There wasn't really a fight that I really wanted to see very bad. I just wanted to see who was going to be taking the top shot, a shot at the top of the division. I had Emmanuel Navarrete with the loose hold as on the #1 spot. Haven't really heard anything out of him. Gary Russell ended up fighting and losing to Mark Magsayo. And then we got the announcement that Kiko Martinez is fighting Josh Warrington in a rematch now. I think that's going to open some things up. Kid Galahad has made the decision to move up to 130, and because making 126 is too much. That's why we're not going to see a rematch between him and Kiko Martinez. I like the fight with Martinez and Josh Warrington. I think that could go either way. Mauricio Lara is staying busy on one of the undercards this month on DAZN. And then you have, Mark Magsayo, the new champion of the WBC, and it looks like he's going to be fighting Ray Vargas next. And I really believe the winner of that fight is going to be right next to or maybe pass up Emmanuel Navarrete. 126 is wide open for that top spot. Depending on who you beat and when you beat them, it could put you right there. Magsayo wasn't even ranked for me. He was right at the back of the top 10, and he defeats Gary Russell, and now he's right there at #2, right behind Emmanuel Navarrete. Some could argue maybe he deserves to be #1, but I really believe with Vargas's resume and Magsayo's resume, the winner of that fight could very easily pass up Emmanuel Navarrete, depending on what he does next. So again, this division's wide open, and there's no super fights on the horizon, but there's very good fights to look forward to. So check those out if they present themselves, and I'm hoping they will. Now, the next division I want to look at is 200 pounds, cruiserweight. So potentially, like as I just said a minute ago, you're looking forward. We're looking at a very good matchup between Lawrence Okoli and Mikel Cieslak taking place at the end of this month on February 27th. But other things, Maris Bradis isn't really moving and doing anything. Lawrence Okoli is making a move in this division. They're trying to get the WBA champion Arsen Goulamirian to make his mandatory defense on the undercard of Okoli and Cieslak, and then Okoli wants to unify belts. So Okoli is making a major step towards going to the top of the division. This is a 6'5" cruiserweight that wants to be at heavyweight at some point, but he really wants to make a big impact at cruiserweight first. You got Ilunga Makabu scored a controversial decision over Tabiso Mashunu and is trying to get in line for Canelo. I don't think he's going to get the Canelo fight, but it is an intriguing accomplishment for Canelo to try to become a 5-division world champion, the first Mexican to ever accomplish that. So I really believe Canelo is going to fight Jermall Charlo next. We'll get to that in a little bit, but the potential for him moving up to cruiserweight is still there, and that makes this division very interesting. So make sure you pay attention. There are going to be some very good cruiserweight fights coming your way in 2022. All right, next division, 175 light heavyweight. Right now, we are on the verge of a unification bout being signed between unified champion and undefeated Arthur Beterbiev, 17-0, 17 knockouts. There's very good chance he's going to be fighting the WBO champion Joe Smith Jr. next. I just actually read this yesterday that Joe Smith, they're close to signing a deal. Right now, Joe Smith is being offered $1.5 million. He wants 1.8. So I'm hoping they get him paid or they work something out. And I think the fight will get worked out because this is a big fight. They unify 3 of the 4 belts. And that offers a very attractive opponent for a potential Canelo fight in the second half of this year or early next year. Canelo is probably going to want to become an undisputed champion, and he's not going to want to do it in a matter of 4 fights like he did starting last year. I think Canelo is going to want to maybe two fight that thing. So at some point, I think when Canelo's done with his business at 168, he is absolutely moving to 175. He might make a stop at 200 to gobble up a belt there for the history, but I really believe light heavyweight is going to be Canelo's ultimate prize in the next couple of years. So, and I know he wants to go after undisputed. So these guys need to continue to set themselves up. Dimitri Bivol not really doing shit right now. I know Bivol, Eddie Hearn, his promoter, offered Canelo a 2-fight deal for Canelo to fight Bivol in May and then fight Triple G in September. But I really believe Canelo wants to 1-fight it and take a deal to fight Charlo in May. And again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Bivol, I think he's just doing the Canelo dance right now. Once we see what's going on with Canelo, I'm really hoping we see Bivol and Gilberto Ramirez lock horns for the WBA light heavyweight title. As again, these guys need to lobby at light heavyweight. They're right there in the Canelo mix. These guys need to lobby themselves to set up a potential future Canelo fight. And I really love that Beterbiev and Joe Smith Jr. are attempting to lock horns with each other. That really is exciting news right there. So we'll see. All right, the next division I want to jump to is 140 pounds, junior welterweight. Right now, this division is ruled by the undisputed champion, Josh Taylor. He's coming back on February 26th, taking on Jack Catterall. I don't think he's going to have any trouble getting past Catterall. And then the big question is, what is he doing after that? We know there's a potential fight on the horizon between him and Teofimo Lopez, but does Lopez want to take one fight in the first half of the year and then go straight to Josh Taylor in the second half of the year? I'm not so sure about that. So who becomes his opponent? Who is Josh Taylor's opponent in the second half of the year? We know Jose Ramirez is fighting Jose Pedraza, trying to get back into the mix. We know Jose Cepeda is sitting there as a top contender to one of the belts that Taylor has. We know Regis Prograis wants to jump back in the mix. And then you got Sandor Martin, who pulled off the upset of Mikey Garcia. So it's going to be interesting to see the kind of year and who tries to put themselves in position for Josh Taylor. But I'm hoping that he takes I really want him to fight Jose Cepeda. I think Cepeda deserves it. I think that would be it'd be a really good matchup, and a style clash. And we're going to see what happens. But Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez could be happening in the second half of the year. So we'll see. 130 pounds, super featherweight. The fight that we wanted to see coming into this year was easy. The top 2 guys was Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez. They're both undefeated champions. And now it looks like all it's going to take is Oscar Valdez to sign on the dotted line. The fight has been agreed to in principle. The fight looks like April is going to go, and we're going to get a true number 1 fighter. We're going to get a unified champion that night, and an undefeated fighter will come out of the ashes of that. But the thing is Oscar Valdez has been reluctant to sign so far. Shakur Stevenson just came out a few days ago, telling him to stop ducking him and to sign on the dotted line and get this fight finalized. So we're going to see. I really believe this fight's going to happen. I do. There's other fighters at 130 that are lobbying to get into position. Chris Colbert and Roger Gutierrez. Robson Conciso just scored a big win over Xavier Martinez. And you got, I think, Shavkat Rakimov is going to be fighting Kenichi Ogawa for the IBF title. So, again, guys are moving themselves in position to try to take a shot at the top of the division right now. But I really hope the Stevenson and Valdez fight gets announced and finalized very soon. And I think it's going to. Next division I want to look at is 154, Super Welterweight. And this one, we are on the verge of finalizing the undisputed title rematch between two-time champion Jermell Charlo and unified champ Jermell Charlo and undefeated WBO champion Brian Castano. I really hope this fight gets made. There's talks that it shifted from Houston to LA. I think that's what they're trying to lock down as a location right now. But this fight has been agreed to in principle. Other governing bodies have confirmed. They're paying their step-aside monies to their mandatories, and I can't wait for a true undisputed champion to be crowned between Charlo and Castano in their rematch. Their first fight was great, and I can't wait to see the rematch. Other guys making a name, though, a big fight on the horizon is Erickson Lubin and Sebastian Fundora. Those two guys look like they're going to lock horns for an interim title or a final eliminator, and I am super excited about that fight. So make sure you guys check that out and pay attention to 154 because it's going to be a good division, but it's also going to be a wide open division in the second half of the year, and somebody needs to take that top mantle. And we're going to see. We're going to see if the winner of Castano and Charlo stay at 154 or if they move up to 160. Because 160, we're going to get into that division now. 160 looks like we're about to lose the top three guys because Canelo seems to be positioning himself, and those guys seem ready to move up. And the reason I say that is it looks like Canelo's going to fight Jermall Charlo, who's the WBC champ. So he will give up his belt and move up to 160. Then Canelo's entertaining the idea of fighting Triple G in the second half of the year. Triple G, if he gets by Ryota Murata, which he should, he'll move up to 168. And then you have Demetrius Andrade is currently positioning himself to move up and fight Zach Parker in what would be a final eliminator or an interim title fight at 168 for the WBO. So Andre could become a mandatory to one of Canelo's belts. So we could be losing our top three guys at 160. And what that's going to mean is we're going to see a brand new turnover at 160 pounds, which sucks because you lose some stars, but it also opens the door up for other fighters like Jaime Munguia or Carlos Adames. It looks like they're going to go at it. You got veteran Arizlandi Lara. You got Zanabek Alamakanuli, Kazakh style. That guy, you got him looking to take the top mantle and try to take over this division. And then, like I said, you got the winner of Charlo and Castano, possibly both of them, moving up to 160 if they become undisputed champion at 154. So a lot of exciting things taking place at middleweight. And, it's all centers around Canelo and what he decides. But I really believe we could be turning 160 over with guys from 154 and some fresh faces at 160. Next division I want to talk about is welterweight, 147. We already got the news that it looks like in the spring we're going to see Errol Spence and Yordenis Ugas unifying belts. The WBA came in and accepted that fight instead of forcing Ugas to compete in the four-man box-off. So I can't wait. I think Ugas and Spence is going to be a really good fight. Spence said the fight's going to take place in April. We're going to see what happens after that. We know Crawford is positioning himself possibly to fight the winner of Thurman or Barrios, which I'm sure he's hoping is Keith Thurman. I don't like that. I want Crawford to come back in the first half of the year and fight. I really do. I don't want to see him fighting in the second half and only fighting once in 2022. I want to see Crawford twice, and I want to see him fight in the first half of the year. That way he could potentially set up to fight the winner of Spence Ugas for the undisputed title. But I don't know. Right now it's looking bleak, and I'm pretty bummed about that. But we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get what we want. Maybe Crawford and the winner of Spence Ugas can make that shit happen. Or maybe Crawford could get the fight with Josh Taylor. Who knows? Taylor's going to want a big fight in the second half of the year. If it's not Teofimo Lopez, maybe it'll be Terrence Crawford. So we'll see what happens there. And next, we move to 135, the lightweight division. The fight we wanted to see was pretty much Kambosos fighting any one of either Lomachenko, Devin Haney, or Gervonta Tank Davis. And right now, there was talks that the Lomachenko fight might have fallen to the wayside because Loma's not willing to accept a rematch clause in the contract. Probably because Loma knows he's going to smash on George Kambosos, and what would be the point in fighting him in a rematch? And then you have Devin Haney. They're saying he priced himself out by asking for too much money. And then Tank Davis is fighting Rolando Romero is what I'm hearing next. So that kind of sucks because, I really wanted to see Kambosos fight Loma, but I can't understand why the governing bodies aren't coming together and mandating a fight between Loma and George Kambosos. I really don't understand that. Loma, I can understand why he doesn't want to do a rematch clause in a contract because that's a waste of time for him. He's probably going to dominate George Kambosos, and there's going to be no reason for a rematch. But so I can understand that, but man, that really sucks if that fight doesn't happen. And you don't have to worry about a rematch clause in a contract if the WBO and the WBC come out and mandate the fight. Loma's number one contender in both those governing bodies. So I'm really bummed out about that. But then the Devin Haney fight, if he really is pricing himself out, I think that's a mistake on Devin Haney's part as well, because why price yourself out? He's only 22, 23 years old. Why price yourself out now? Because it doesn't make sense. I think most people would favor Devin Haney to win the fight. If Devin Haney were to beat George Kambosos and become the unified champion, then everybody is going to want to fight him now. They can't avoid him. So Lomachenko will want to fight him. Ryan Garcia will want to fight him. Maybe Tank Davis would want to fight him. And then all the money comes rolling in then. And he's so young. Why price yourself out of a fight that, you're probably not going to get? Again, you're probably not going to have an opportunity again, or, Lomachenko is going to be like, well, I don't need to fight him. I'll fight Tank Davis, instead. So I don't know if Devin Haney is pricing himself out, it's a mistake. It really is. And I hope that's not the case. But if Kambosos doesn't fight Haney or Lomachenko next, it's going to make it very hard to try to get an undisputed championship fight in the second half of the year. I'm going to tell you that right now, because I think if Davis beats Romero, the WBA might mandate Davis to fight whoever the unified champion is if it's Kambosos. And then you're going to have both Lomachenko and Devin Haney sitting left out with their dick in their hand, which is going to suck. And I hope that's not the case. So I'm hoping these guys get their shit together. But why? I don't understand why the governing bodies just don't mandate this fight to happen. Because if they don't, we could potentially have an IBF mandatory in the second half of the year also, who wants to get in line for the world title, and that could fuck everything up. So I was really hoping for, and I still am, that Kambosos fights Lomachenko next. And then the winner of that fights Devin Haney in the second half of the year, or even Gervonta Tank Davis. But we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. But lightweight was supposed to be the division that kept us, that brought us all back to the drawing table in 2021, and was supposed to kind of take the welterweight spot, the smaller division outside of heavyweight that was really going to entertain us in 2022. And right now it's not looking like it. So I hope they get their shit together and can figure these fights out. The next division we're going to look at is 168 super middleweight. Canelo Alvarez rules that division, and he's the undisputed champion. And right now, I mean, it's crazy that 160 pounds all the way to 200 pounds, that's 4 divisions. These guys are dancing around what Canelo's going to do. After Canelo knocked out Caleb Plant when the WBC had their convention in December, Eddie Reynoso went and petitioned to have Canelo get in line for the WBC Cruiserweight title. The WBC approved that, and there was talks about Canelo moving up to about 180 pounds and challenging the winner of Makabu Mashunu. But just in the last few weeks, it shifted to where even Eddie Reynoso is saying that Jamal Charlo makes the most sense. And I said that from the beginning with Canelo, that I think Canelo needs to settle any more business between 160 and 168 before he moves up to 175. Because there are names there that Canelo can make money against that he needs to shut up. And The first one is Charlo. I want to see Canelo fight Jamal Charlo next just to shut him the fuck up. Charlo doesn't deserve the fight, but he's got a name. That's the one thing I'll give him is he's got a name. He's undefeated. And Canelo in May, I'm really hoping and praying, and I think he's going to end up fighting Jamal Charlo for the title, and I think he's going to knock his ass out easily. Then I think Canelo needs to settle his business with Triple G. So what if Triple G's 40, get the third fight? It's going to sell. People are going to tune in. It's going to be entertaining. Go get the victory over Triple G, and then his business is done between 160 and 168, and he could focus on moving up and winning a championship in a fifth weight class at cruiserweight, and then he can, if he wants to, or he can come down and or move up to 175 and try to become an undisputed champion in a second weight class, something nobody else has ever accomplished. So I think Canelo really just needs to settle his business and stay champion this year at 168. And then, in 2023, he can move north and he won't have anybody from 168 down that really has legitimacy to call him out anymore. So that's what I'm hoping happens. I hope we hear something soon about Canelo and Charlo in May. And now we're going to finish up in the heavyweight division. The best division in boxing right now. We got some good news the other day that I think it's good news. First off, Anthony Joshua did not take step-aside money. He was offered $15 million to step aside for Usyk and Fury to take place for the undisputed heavyweight title. And he said no. People are knocking him, but Andre Ward hit it on the head. Anthony Joshua has seen $15 million many times in his career. Anthony Joshua is loaded, and it's not about a payday for him. It's about getting revenge and regaining his unified titles to set himself up for a showdown with Fury himself. And people again, they're knocking Joshua for not taking the easy $15 million. But what happens to a potential mega fight where he can make a shitload amount of more money if Usyk goes and beats Fury? He fights Usyk later on. Okay, that would be a big money fight. Okay, I understand that. But most likely, and most people are going to agree with this, they're going to think that Usyk is going to lose to Tyson Fury. So what would he get out of fighting Usyk again just for revenge? And then he would have to go to Fury? No. Right now, Joshua has a big opportunity to make a lot of money and regain his world titles against Alexander Usyk and get his revenge. Then a mega fight is in the works with Tyson Fury for later on in the year. So I think that Anthony Joshua did the right thing. I'm happy he did that. I want to see him go for it. And if he loses, he loses. But at least he's taking a shot and he's not sitting there just counting his money. It's not about money for him. This is about pride. This is about his ego. This is about the world title. This is about setting up more bigger money fights down the road, and I like his decision. While after that happened, Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte, their title fight went to purse bid. Tyson Fury is going to make almost $30 million to fight Dillian Whyte in a fight. I think they gave him a February 21st deadline to come down, and they're talking about that fight taking place in April right now. So I'm really looking forward to the heavyweight division and what we're going to be seeing just in those fights, because that's 4 of the top 5 guys outside of Deontay Wilder making noise and fighting in the next couple months. So, hopefully before the end of February, we get some announcements on some big fights coming up. March is looking solid, but I think April is going to be an explosion of big fights, and then May as well. So be looking forward to that. And that's what I got tonight, guys. That's my episode 7 of the True Boxing Podcast. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I really put my heart into it. Check it out. Smash the like button. Send me some comments, man. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a good night. And that's True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.